Good day, everyone. God's peace and blessings to you all. Assalamu alaikum. I am here today back with Coach Aisha, and we are going to do a little video today about your story. Actually, the title of this video is My Story, and we're going to talk about your story and all the facets behind that idea, phenomenon, existence. And we hope you enjoy this issue of Coach's Corner. We thank you for watching our videos. We know we it come in and out, but life is life and we're living it. And we are always working and growing and striving. And so we are here back with Coach's Corner and our new video. I'm Coach Rashida, and here's Coach Aisha.
Hey, everybody. Yes, like Coach Rashida said, we are back. I am Coach Aisha of Coaching for Kings. And today, this topic is so personal to me. We're going to talk about my story, which I feel like every human who exists has a story. Some people are aware of it, some people aren't. And basically it is, when you talk about your story, it's like your interpretation of your life, what you choose to believe is your truth, what your life means to you. When somebody does something to you, what you interpret as the meaning of why they did that to you and what it means to you, and sometimes what you created means about yourself. So before we get more deeper into the topic, I will do an intention setting, if that's okay, Rashida, for us to do our intention setting for what I want you to get from this video.
Yeah.
And okay, perfect. So as always, my intention for you, our viewers, first, know that this video comes from love. And with that being said, the intention for you today is for you to let go of your attachments to the story of who you are, to be open to realizing that you created meaning to every interaction and every experience in your life, and that you can always change the meaning, change your story to actually benefit you and free you from your self-imposed confinement. And so more or less, change your story, change your life. I would love for every viewer to get the understanding of that, because it is the biggest way to your freedom. And when you realize that you have confined yourself to these limitations unintentionally and unconsciously, and you have decided, this is who I am, and this behavior is how I behave. And you look at other people, our relationship is this. And then what I like to tell people, like when I'm coaching, is says who? Why is that so definite? Why do you decide, I have a temper? And that means that all your behavior is going to have to respond in that manner, But there's always circumstances where they bend, because humans, we're not that definite. I guess I'm trying to think of the best word to say, or we're not that stringent on personality types, because we're fluid beings, So there's always a situation where something that you have described yourself as, I behave this way, or this is the right way of behaving, or this is morally right, or this is my values of how this works, except when when this comes into play. Okay, this is the only exception, And so if you realize that, then you also realize that you can recreate things that actually serve you, because maybe that story served you before 10, 15, 20 years ago. And maybe it protected you from something at the capacity that you were in then. Or, this gave you some sort of meaning or identity. And now you have grown past that. So we're going to dive into our stories. because this work is something that I have been doing recently, y'all. Like, this is fresh for me. A lot of, I had to, and okay, once again, viewers, no, we're coming with love because we're going to hit you in very sensitive spots that may make you want to respond. And no, but that is what it is. This is what happened to me, you know? I don't want to take that away from you, but I want you to know that, but does it really serve you anymore? So for me, for instance, my example would be, I decided at a very young age in my family group, you know, we all have our family groups that we grew up in. I decided that I had a place in my family. I decided that I wasn't one of the most talented ones in my family. I decided that I wasn't, these were decisions I unconsciously made when I was a kid because maybe an experience happened to me that made me feel this way, that I was less adequate, that my strengths were different from my family member. I would call I'm the lightest person in my family. So in my mind, I would say, I'm the white sheep of the family instead of black sheep. I decided that I was different than my family members. And because of that, that made meaning to me. And because of that, I had to live in that space of always trying to prove the things that I decided right. So what happens is, once you create or decide a story about yourself or a situation or an experience, now you go out and you create evidence that makes your story more solid and more true to you. So you're like, okay, so I can never find any good men. You know, this may be examples of my stories. You know, I always attract dogs, or I always attract men who cheat on me, or who aren't honest with me, or aren't loving to me, or don't value me. And then you go out because you already put that in the universe. And next thing you know, you go and attract this guy, you really like him, like, oh, he may be the one. And then he does exactly what you said that is who you attract. And now you're like, I told you. And it gives you more evidence to back your story up. So your story becomes your solid truth. So that's why this is very hard for people, because we could argue all day long about how many examples and how many reasons of why this story is true to us. But when you do that, you are choosing to be a victim and not step into your power of what you created. And it doesn't feel good, because when you realize that you created all your own, like I said, self-imposed confinement, when you created all your own situations, it doesn't always feel good because you want to blame it on somebody else, because it's a lot easier to shift and blame and direct that energy somewhere else than to do a deep dive internally and look at your life, your story. What have you created about yourself? So that's just kind of like the beginning. And I have some points and some examples and stuff. I'm gonna hand it over to Rashida. This is so important to me, y'all. If I had to look at myself and look at my relationships, look at my conflicts, look at my family, look at everything I created about me, my experiences, look at my bank account, look at everything. And it's just evidence of what I said and what I believe about who I am. And what some of it is great, and other stuff is not so great, you know? And so even like changing up what I created, my childhood meant to me, but did that really, was that really the truth? Or was that just your outlook on it in that space from your one perspective, when there was 30 other people involved and everybody else has a different perspective from what it meant to them? So is that really the solid truth, Aisha? Or were you at a hurt space? And imagine when you're like in a unhealed pain state and you make a decision about who you are, and you stick with that decision for the rest of your life, and and it's not even who you really are at your soul level, but maybe you had some hurt or some pain and you layered it up to protect yourself. And that's when you chose those decisions, and those become your story. It's powerful. when you realize like, wow,
Yeah.
I am so powerful. Like I created all of this, I can uncreate all of that and create something else. So that's why it's so beautiful to me.
Mhm. Take ownership.
Yes. I like full accountability and responsibility for your life. And I was listening to Jack Canfield, and I'm sorry, I told you I was going to let you go, but I was listening to a Jack Canfield book the other day. And he said, do you blame anyone for anything in your life right now? And most people blame somebody for something. And he was like, and if you still continue to blame anybody for anything or make an excuse for anybody or anything else outside of yourself, then you still have not taken full accountability and responsibility for your life, your experience.
Yeah.
It was like, and until you get to that space, then that's when you know you're fully accountable and responsible. And so that was kind of because I find myself, I think I'm pretty accountable and responsible, but I still have a couple people I blame. Give me 1 second. Rashid, I'm gonna let you get started. I'm gonna let my cat out because he's of course.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Coach Rashida, Sacred Coaching. I forgot to let y'all know about that coaching business. But Sacred Coaching, where we deal with you grabbing that abundance that God has meant for you. And one of the ways that you do that is by understanding who you are. And one way to understand who you are is to understand your story. So Aisha and I have been talking about this topic for a while. And when we first approached it, and I was thinking, okay, we're going to do this video talking about our story, I thought that it was going to be a video of me sharing my story and the experiences that I've had in my life. And I don't know, maybe a type of venting session or something. But then I did a lot of research, a lot of study, much reflection. And I realized that when it comes to your story, it's not about all of what happened to you, because what happened to you happened. But it's about your way of taking what happened to you and becoming enlightened by it and allowing it to be the foundation for seizing your abundance and grabbing this future of greatness that you have out here waiting for you. It's very important to me for people to share their story and to share it authentically and honestly. With that, you do not need to tell people stuff about your life that you don't want them to know. I wholeheartedly believe in keeping your secrets, the secrets that you wish not to share. But I also think that you should put that into perspective, and you should be available to share some of your story with other people, because number one, when you share your story, every time you share your story, you release anything in that story that you have not yet dealt with. You release anything in that story that's binding you, that you kind of need to move past, and you also discover things that maybe you haven't dealt with as you should have, so that you can heal from it and let it go and move into your future. One thing I realized about sharing my story is that it helps me to connect with other people. So sometimes you can be in this life, in this world, feeling very lonely, feeling like you're the only one who's had the experience that you had, and you're the only one who feels the way you feel. And it's a projection of things in your mind that creates a very lonely space around you. But when you share your story, when you're willing to talk about the things that you've experienced, then you open the door for those other people who may have some of the same experiences to walk through and share them with you. And not everybody is going to have the exact same experience, But that small connection opens you up to not feeling as if you are by yourself. Like Coach Aisha and I share some experiences that aren't exactly the same, but in context, they are similar, and they allow us to connect with each other on a level that we don't connect with other people on. And we aren't the only two people with this connection. And it's not one thing, it's multiple things that allow us to form that connection. And that's how I've made a connection with other people, by sharing the story. Your story helps you to see how you may have been stagnant, how you may have developed, and maybe where you need to go from where you sit now. It's a process of owning who you are. And when I say own who you are, it's not about saying I'm like this and I can't change and I can't be different. It's about saying, oh, this has affected me in this way, and this is how I have responded to it. And now, is my response benefiting me, or is my response holding me back? You create a space to tell your own narrative when you share your story. So I think that one thing about sharing your story is remembering to be truthful and authentic. When you hold your story in and you only share bits and pieces, you tend to begin to create a falseness in your story. And you'll find yourself, and I say this because I've done it, you find yourself basically lying, trying to come up with something that you think other people would like, trying to say something that you think would make you look good to other people. And it shuts you down. It shuts you down emotionally and spiritually, because living a lie is damaging. So I encourage people to visit their story often, reflect on their experiences, and as Aisha said, reflect on those people who shared that experience with you. So, if I'm looking in my childhood, we may have all experienced the same thing, my brother, sister, and I. However, how they responded may be different. How they perceived it may be different. But if I listen to them, and even my parents, if I listen to them and what they were going through that made them be who they were or behave as they behave, then I can understand how, number one, everybody's behavior is not directly about me. And number two, it allows me to have compassion and empathy. And when you have compassion and empathy, you become, to me, a wholehearted human being, because that's that's what life is about.
That freedom that I was
Freedom. And also sharing your story allows you to have a vulnerability that people run away from. I think one of the main reasons why we hide so much is because we're scared to be vulnerable, because we think it opens us up to attack, but it doesn't. People are going to attack you if they want to, regardless. But it doesn't open you up to attack. It gives you the power to say, you can attack me, but this is what it is. And I can definitely, discuss what you want to discuss around that. It's very important to be the owner of your narrative, because when you're the owner, you can change it. You can't change what happened, but you can look at your experiences and maybe change your perspective. And you can grow, and you can develop, and you can move forward, and you can plan your steps and set your goals and how you want your life to look and how you want your story to sound the next time you tell it. And it's a work, everything that we talk about is always work. Life is work. In this world, and especially now, I think in the society and the things that we go through and the things that we experience, it puts us in a position where we're always needing to do work in order to sustain our mental health. And
Yeah.
so sharing your story is like the first step in that process to
Mhm.
doing that work. Um, yeah, I got a few other points about it, but I definitely just want people to understand that it's okay to have a story that seems whatever somebody may say about it. I listened to this lady tell her story. She was captive in the area of China, or I don't want to say it wrong, so I'm not going to say the name, but that area where they're um, holding those Muslims hostage and trying to get them to um, renounce their faith and their belief system. But she was a lady who was subjected to being raped constantly by multiple men, so much so that they damaged her whole internal female system, and she had to have a hysterectomy, and she was young, and she's never going to have children, but she managed to escape the situation. And so in her escape, her story made her become a woman of strength, not a woman of, whoa, what they did to me, oh, this happened and my life is over and I'm doomed, but a woman of strength who now goes around telling her story and also showing you how you can be more than what you experienced.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think that's one of the main things for me about you sharing your story, is so that you can become the owner of a new narrative that is more than what you have experienced. And Aisha, I'll send it over to you.
Oh, this was good. Okay, so I wanted to touch on two things because I love the fact that this is a two-sided topic. Um, when you're talking about your story and we're talking about your actual interpretation of your life, your story, your experiences, some of the trials, the adversities, even the things that were good for you, the accomplishments that happened to you in your life. What I think is the most important thing is for you to recognize that you give meaning to, to things. And what meaning did you give your experiences to who you are? And I think that's where you really, really take it. So that's what happens is when you choose to, or you unconsciously choose to create a belief about yourself due to an experience that you had. That's where the power for me lies for people. And we realize that a lot of times we create these beliefs about ourselves because of our experience. And that's why the story is so hard to talk about, because it feels like it's attacking your actual being as a person, who your soul is, because you believe or chose to believe that this was you. So, for instance, if you talk about like a traumatic experience where maybe you were physically or mentally abused or sexually abused or had some trauma, and maybe it happened at a very vulnerable state and time, or that just creates a vulnerable state for any human being because it's so traumatizing. And in that state, you chose to believe that this meant something about you. Like maybe you chose to believe that you were damaged, or maybe you chose to believe that that you were unlovable, or maybe you chose to believe that you deserved this because of something else you did, or you were being punished and you needed to be punished, or maybe you chose to believe you could. So many things could come out of a situation like that. And the reason why I keep saying choose to believe, which people a lot of times hate that because they're like, I didn't choose this, I didn't choose it. But I want you to always remember how powerful you are. So I'm going to always remind you how powerful you are, even when it's uncomfortable, because everything in life is a choice. Even if we're unconscious of the choice, it's still a choice, because you always can have a choice to choose this. That means even in that space, you're like, well, this is what happened to me. This is my experience. Yes, I'm never devalidating your experience, but you still chose to make it mean this about yourself. That's part of that uncomfortable responsibility and accountability for yourself. So, for example, I've had a couple of sexual trauma interactions that happened in my life, and at a very young age, I had my first rape experience at like 15, and that was my first sexual experience. And I chose to believe that it made me unlovable, or it made me a man would never take me serious, to be like wifey material and things like that. I didn't consciously choose that, but that's what I chose to believe in that moment. And so I created all these experiences in my life forever for me. And that was my story. My story was I'm the fun girl. I would never even open my heart. I was terrified because it happened by a man who I actually really, really liked at that time and age, and I trusted. And he really betrayed my trust. So I made that belief that if you open your heart and like somebody, they're going to hurt you. So that was one of the layers in the story. So I was like, don't ever get attached. I don't do relationships. I just have fun. We just kicking it. And so I would have these interactions with people where I would only let it go so far. I can like him, but I would never commit, because if I commit, unconsciously, I made that belief that he's going to hurt me. And every man I interacted with hurt me. From then on out, it was always ended in pain. And I felt all relationships or all interactions in with pain. So the less attached you were to them, the less that I actually made a commitment, the less investment I made to them, probably not going to get as hurt, And that was my story until this relationship I am in now, which we're going on 3 years. So I was my story for 18 years. That was my story. And that was my truth. And I lived by that. And you couldn't tell me nothing, because that was my truth. And I wasn't aware of it, but that's something that I consciously chose. So this is what I mean about your story. You could look at your life and you're seeing what is happening to you. And then you're like, okay. And if I could demand of you, which I can't, but if I could demand of you, please be graceful with yourself in your accountability and your responsibility. This is not a time to self-reflect and beat yourself up. No, it is it's as if you're talking to a client and you're like a psychologist, psychiatrist, a coach, therapist, and you have no personal opinion, or no moral or value for this person that you're trying to help and heal. And that's how you heal and help yourself. You don't beat yourself up and add like these extra, because that's what happens. We look back at ourselves, oh, you were stupid. Oh, you should have known better. Why did you do that? Oh, you deserve that for being so stupid. This is a decision you made. That's a bad person would do that. Or you have all this judgment. That's what I'm trying to say. Let go of this judgment of yourself. In the moment of your story, you're just objectively looking back. Look at your life like a movie. Look back at decisions and, oh, okay, I made that experience mean this about me. So I thought that was cool what you're saying, because if you look like at any like religious books, and you look at the stories of different prophets, and everybody had some type of adversity they had to overcome to help them have the strength that it was to teach and to free other people. And I think that every human being has something to share with other human beings, because we're all interconnected regardless. So if you let go of the judgment, the shame, the guilt, even when you were a person who caused pain onto other people, because you have to be responsible for that, because it goes both ways a lot of times. That's okay, because that's where you were at in that capacity at that time. And maybe you owning up to that, letting go of the shame and the guilt behind that, which there's a lot of ways to do this, which we can't discuss everything right now, but you're taking responsibility. Okay, I did that and I hurt people by being this way. I made mistakes in my past. I'm not judging myself. Now I'm very happy to share about what I did. So if you did that, this can free you too, because a decision, a interaction, an experience does not have to mean who you are as a person, because any person can make any decision at any moment of time, depending on where they're pushed to make that decision. Not making it a right or a wrong thing. I'm talking about living with no judgment of you and your experiences when you're looking at your stories. It's been times that I know I've hurt people, and I didn't intentionally think about it in that moment, But I had to own up to the fact that, yeah, I did that. So now I can share it with other people about the time that I hurt somebody. And it may not be a proud moment, but it was a learning lesson to help me be able to be who the woman I am now, and to be able to help heal thousands of people, help them find that in themselves, if that makes sense. So like that part of sharing your story, Rashid, I think it is powerful. But I do believe, like when you said your secrets, I believe that there's a time and a place, and you have to be able to be ready to be at that space. Because if
Yeah.
you're not completely forgiving of yourself and you still have a lot of judgment about you and the decision you made, it may not be the time to share your story until you have done that work on yourself.
Yeah.
And because you will make meaning of criticism. If at this point in my life and I'm comfortable and I've done my healing around a situation and somebody criticizes it, it's okay, because it doesn't mean anything to me about who I am as a person. But if I'm still holding on to that and I feel like they're attacking my character, and I'm still holding on to attachment to that situation, and it still means something to me, it wouldn't be a safe space for me to share it, because I can't even honestly or unobjectively like look at the situation and like, yeah, this is what happened, this is what I did, this is what I experienced, this is what it meant to me at the moment, this is how I hurt people, or this is what it happened to me, this is what I made me to me. But now that you are at a healed space, you can look at it like, oh, okay, all right, I see why I did that. But if you're not at a healed space, it's very hard for you to, so there's steps when it comes to sharing your story. First thing is identifying your story. What is it? What is your story? Like, or even stories about certain situations. So it could be a traumatic situation that had a major impact on your life and you changed your whole way of behaving from this situation. Look at that story and say, okay, here's the facts. This is what happened. Facts. I'm not talking about opinions. I'm not talking about judgments. Facts. I walked down the street. I got hit by a car. I lost use of both my legs. Facts. You may have made that mean that I left the house, I was in an argument, I did this, blah, 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 whatever happened. I was in a crazy state and I said something really horrible, or I did a very horrible act and I walked in and I got hit by a car. And so now this is God punishing me. And then from now on the rest of my life, I got to be in a wheelchair. And now you made your story mean something. And so now you're running around with shame and guilt.
That's a good example.
Yeah, because I've seen different people and then they walk around with all this guilt and they're like, I got to be punished, or I deserve this, or etc. And you made it mean that, if that makes any sense, which means you can make it mean something else. I walked down the street. Facts. I didn't look to my left. Facts. A car hit me. Facts. I broke both my legs. Facts. I grew so much from that experience, and I realized that my legs had nothing to do with who I was as a person. I realized that I had so much to share, and I can inspire thousands of people who were, I think the correct word is like quadriplegic, but were disabled. And now I can go and assist young children who feel, and now I can let them know that they can live a very full and fulfilled and purposeful life. And now I can let them know that they can still have love and be in a relationship and people still love them for who they are. And now I know that because of this experience, this is what I'm making it mean for me. This is my new story. Even if you decided to live in that space for 20 years, the power of us as humans is we can change at any moment we decide.
Yeah.
And rewrite your story, change your life. I have some tips. I'm gonna pass it back to Rashida just because I wanted to actually give some actual written down tips instead of me just blah, blah, blah. So,
well,
or we can go. Okay, so what I was going to say.
No, go ahead. I thought you was going to do it after. Go ahead.
No. Okay, so I wanted to just throw some things out. Identifying your story, realizing that you are the creator of your truth. That was important to me because your truth is your truth. Rashida's truth is different from Aisha's truth. And our truth can change at any moment. So realizing that, number one. So your truth is really an illusion. which I think is very interesting because we are so humans, we are so defined by our truth, and this is what it is, and nothing is what it is. That's just how life flows. So, really looking at the core beliefs about yourself, what you believe about yourself. And this is one of those no judgment, digging real deep, sitting down. And the way you can look at your core beliefs is to look at what you have created. Look at your interactions with people. Look at the trust factors you have in your relationships. Look at the type of job that you have created, and the type of, I'm the kind of person who makes this amount of money. I'm the type of person who did this. I believe this about myself. I believe that. Look at your family relationships. Look at your childhood. Look at everything and start to get more beliefs about, like, what are your core beliefs about yourself? What are your core beliefs about other people? That's another thing, because if you're like, people are always this, men are always this, women are always this, Black people are like this, white people are like this, you don't trust people. What are your core beliefs about people? And then what are your core beliefs about the world? When you start to look at the 3 factors of your core beliefs: yourself, other people, the world. What do you believe about the world? Do you believe it's a fair world? Do you believe it's an unfair world? Do you believe people are genuinely kind? Do you think people are out to get you? What do you believe about the world? You know, these are very important. So what happens is your beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies.
Yeah.
A self-fulfilling prophecy is when you look for evidence that supports something that you believe to be true to reinforce the idea. And that's what I was mentioning earlier. Some steps to rewrite your story: examine your habits, like I was just saying. Once you examine your habits, you're looking at what you could do with just your habits and how you can change that. And then it takes practice, because your habits are embodied. You have to start to embody your new habits that you want to replace those old habits with. Focus on self-reflection. You have to keep looking in the mirror, keep looking in the mirror. And then what happens when you start doing the stuff that's going to happen in your life, that's going to start popping up. Situations, challenging situations, trials, tribulations, things, relationships, things that you're starting to look, they're going to start just hitting you in the head and make it, because you're now aware. You're like, okay, I'm watching for this, and everything is going to start. You're like, oh my God. Okay, so I realized that I made my relationship with my mom mean this. I realized that the type of mother I decided I was made me respond to my kids like this. And you limit yourself when you do these things, because you can never fully be available for other people or yourself, because you limit, I have to respond this way, or this gets on my nerves. And so every time any human does that, you automatically are triggered by it. So now you limit yourself from objectively looking at an experience. So focus on self-reflection. Surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with people who understand your process, people who allow you to be in this space of your self-reflection, your journey, identifying your stories, who support you and you trying to become the most empowered, best version of yourself. And keep taking risks. And you have to go out and keep trying. You could do all the self-work at home, but now you got to go out and practice it. And these practices be in conversations, interactions, whatever. So those are just some tips that I wrote down. And I wrote some of those tips down off. I actually got that from one of my faves, Tony Robbins. He just has some tips on his about change your story, change your life. So I'm going to pass it to Rashida, and so she can jump in, because I know I saw her writing down some notes. So I know she would have some things she needs to say.
Yeah, just a few things sparked, but that was all good. In my research, I saw something about, and you kind of mentioned it. Instead of being the author of your own misery, be the author of this new narrative of greatness. I can't stress it enough how I've actually, like I said, I've done it. I've experienced other people doing it. You're so ashamed of your story. You're so ashamed of your experiences that you create this narrative that's just not true. And when you do that, it traumatizes you even more than the experience that you're trying to hide. So a couple of things jumped out at me when you were saying be the author. What did you say? It was
I'm with you.
about creating, putting yourself in a situation to make things the way you think things are.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Okay, okay,
it was a
yeah.
P in there somewhere, but it made me think about personality disorder, borderline personality disorder. When
Okay.
you try to create situations to keep up the narrative that you've shaped in your head of what is. And
Mm,
why you've created this situation is something that you need to, look at. A couple of things that I wrote down from what Aisha was saying was that um, you have to understand what it means to change your narrative. People, when people hear change your narrative, change your story, rewrite your story, they get defensive because they're like, how can I do that? This is what happened. This is what I experienced. And that's not really the case. You can do it because you have that power, because it is you and this is your life. Um, Fortunately for us, when we get older, we can reflect. And in that reflection, we can see where we may have gone wrong, where we may have judged something incorrectly, or we can just be truthful about the experience, and the experience is what it was. And if it was a horrible experience, it was a horrible experience. If it was humiliating, it was humiliating, and you have to accept that humiliation. I ran from the story of my humiliation for 20 years. And in, in that feeling humiliated, you tend to then start to believe that you're unworthy.
mm,
And then when you walk in a state of a story that you're unworthy, then there's nothing good that comes to you. Um, Post-traumatic stress is real.
mm,
Every time you experience something, if your hairdresser messed up your hair and you had to go to an important event, not looking the way you intended to look, that can cause post-traumatic stress.
okay.
And then your mind gets warped and you live in this state of that story and that narrative. But if you haven't experienced negative or positive that didn't really, that hit you in some kind of way, mostly negative in this case, that hit you some kind of way and it made you feel down or bad or out, once you change it is when you can come out of that. You can say, okay, this is not the look I was going for, but it's okay. And actually, this is cute on me, or it's a new style, or let me present myself in this way now because this is what I have to present. And then you let the people around you absorb what you present. And it's very, very important. Like I said, post-traumatic stress is real, but it's not finite. It's not something that you may deal with it your whole life, but if you continue to shape who you are and your narrative and yourself and your story, it's something that you deal with on a level of consciousness that makes you feel good rather than bad or low. You start to feel more accomplished. You start to gain what you think you lost. Um, you know, like I say, it's not easy. One thing that I say and that I'm working on, because it takes a lot of work to do this, we have to get out of the idea of saying should have, could have, would have. And so grammatically, the should and could and would do fit in the English language, but it's for like, I should go to the store today. So I'm going to write a list on what I need. But to go back and look and say, I shouldn't have done that, and this wouldn't have happened, that's counterproductive, because you're living in the past, you're living in regret, and you're living in shame and blaming yourself and chastising yourself for some part of your story that occurred. So what I want to encourage people to do with their story, if you want to look at it and see what could have been different, change your verbiage on the matter. So if I want to say,
That's important.
shouldn't have done that and this wouldn't have happened, I'm going to change that to say, I want this to happen, so I'm going to. So you can't go back to the past and change it, but you can move forward. I want this to happen, so I'm going to do this, in order to see what you want to be done. That's how we change our narrative. That's how we create a story that we want to see, and that's how we become who we want to be. So write your story, tell your story, live in the truth of your story. And then what you didn't like, you tell yourself, I want this to be different this time. So I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that.
Or maybe you could choose to change the narrative of why you had to do that to experience that.
Yeah, you can accept that truth as well. Because, as Aisha was saying about, like, in religion with prophets, peace be upon them, when God brought them forth to do what he wanted them to do, they experienced something. They experienced things that a lot of people today would, carry on their back and let it be something that they don't accept their greatness from, and they don't move forward. But even when they did accept what God brought to them and decided to move forward in what God wanted them to do, accepting that, they also still continue to pray, and they continue to ask God to help them and see them through, and with that memory. So you have to have an anchor. What you anchor on to is what you use to keep you steady when you tend to fall back into whatever negative elements of your story that you have chosen to, hide or allow you to feel less than in any type of way. I just want people to, something else I want to bring up actually before I say that. There's this thing called idiot compassion. And it's like, because you have not related to your story, when you hear something that connects to you or that you've experienced, you tend to blurt out that you've experienced it, but you blurt it out in a way that's going to make you feel bad, because you're not really taking ownership of it. You're just yelling it out and screaming it out because it happens and you experience it. And so it leaves you feeling just as bad as that experience made you feel. And I want people to understand the way to control that type of situation or to keep it from happening is to be connected to your story and to own your story, and to have this knowledge and this idea that your story is something that gets written every day that you wake up and you take a breath. That's a new day to add what you're going to add to your story. It's a new day to make your story be the best story that gets told later on in your life from the view of who you are. And you got to remember,
it continues. A new episode every day.
Yeah, every day. It's every day. Like, we watch TV and reality TV, and when we watch that stuff, they have been told to rehash these things in order to make it, be entertaining. But you're not here to entertain people. You're here to live your best life. Yeah. And so what you want to do is take your story and take who you are every day and make it better. Think on it, think on it, think on it, think on it, because we tend to forget about ourselves, because sometimes we're taught that thinking about our story and who we are and where we want to be and where we want to go is selfish, or being, what's that other word, when you're self-absorbed.
I think of that too.
Oh gosh, it's another word. Y'all have to excuse me. I've been a little MS6, so my brain is really off right now. But I just want people to understand that you can always change your narrative and your story. It is something that you do despite other people. And you have to keep that in the back of your mind, because people will try to act like, what? She can't be like that. Or, he can't be like that. They're like this, they're like that. I've had that experience as well. So yeah, like, I never come to you what I haven't experienced. I made a transition into my life from behavior that I was in to the behavior that I wanted to be in. And I met a lot of judgment with that and still do. But I don't care because I love the life I created around it. But I
Mm,
still do work. I still work with it every day. Every
mhm,
day I reflect on the day before. During
mm,
that day, if I experience something in my story that I didn't really want to see, I reflect on that and then I try to make it different the next day. It
mm.
takes study, it takes reading, it takes thought, meditation, prayer, consulting with others. It's a valuable part of life to make your story be what makes you happy.
Yeah.
And I just want everyone to grab hold of that story when you wake up every day and
It's so
say,
freeing.
hey, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. I'm free. This is what I'm going to do. And I don't
Yes.
have to hide. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things in
And
my life that I've
think
experienced.
you
If
said something.
somebody, hold on, if somebody brings it up, I'll talk about it. I might not talk about it all the time, but
Yeah.
if somebody brings it up, I'll talk about it because it's my story and it's not anything that I'm ashamed of, and I'm free, so I can talk about it. When I wasn't free, I couldn't talk about anything, but I'm
Yes.
free now, so I can talk about anything you ask or anything you want to know, especially if I feel like it's going to help someone else. And I've
Yeah.
noticed that people have opened up more with me when I share my story, even parts of it that people would be not willing to share of their own self. Just
Mhm.
to hear, just the experience that I'm willing to share makes them feel comfortable and gives them the pathway to maybe be able to share their stories. And like I said earlier, sharing your story, even if the first person you share it with is your own self, sets
Yeah.
you free. It
Yeah.
really does. It sets you free.
I think it's that. Uh, so the biggest thing I learned in like doing this work is that it's bigger than me, and I'll tell people that quickly. It's not about me. When
Yeah.
you realize that, and you're living in your true purpose, you're just a vessel. Um, Whatever you believe in, or whatever you feel like your purpose is coming, wherever you feel like you're getting your downloads and your information and your experiences that are there to help free and connect other people, we're just vessels. So, you know, it actually is selfish and self-absorbed in me to not share things about my life because I carried judgment or shame about an action I made or something that I experienced or how I responded to that action at that moment. And I made it mean something about who I was. And I could free somebody from realizing that they could do the same thing just by sharing, you know, uh, an experience, you know, and knowing and also sharing that, yeah, I did this. I made these decisions. I am responsible for this, or this happened to me, and I responded and lived this way since that happened to me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, whatever it was. And I did all of that. And then I realized how disempowering it was for me. And I decided to change it up. And I learned so many beautiful lessons from these experiences. And I'm proud to be part of that was something that I experienced that now I can free hundreds of other people who have similar experiences who decided to let that keep them confined in a space of shame or guilt or
Yeah.
judgment themselves, you know? And so it's honestly, it's selfish to not free yourself to help heal other people like you who've
Yeah.
experienced those things, who haven't found the tools yet, or you being authentic in your truth and stepping up and taking responsibility and accountability for exactly who you are, what you've experienced, and the things that you've learned, and share those with other people. It's not about you. And when you realize that, people can have their judgment. Like Rashida was saying something and it sparked. I was like, oh yeah, because I didn't mention that, but people have stories about you. people have a lot of
I
times,
have to laugh at that because
because honey,
I've experienced it
I have family
so
members. I
much.
have family members who and it's okay. It's okay for them to have their
Yeah.
story about me. I have family members, siblings who be like, well, Aisha's this way and this is how she is, and you can't tell me any way different because this is what I experienced with her countless times. And they're right. That's how I was in that time at that moment.
Yeah.
But if they choose to not stay up to date with my growth or realizing that, that was who I was at that moment, that's what I needed to experience. And at this point, I don't regret anything in life. Now, I can look back and I can apologize for when I hurt people. I can apologize for the capacity that I was in at that moment in time, and maybe making selfish decisions or maybe making hurtful decisions or not thinking about other people. I can do my best. And then now all I can do is learn from that and try to teach other people who are in the same space. But
Yeah.
I don't even have to hold offense to people holding on in their stories of me.
Yeah.
That's okay because I've released myself of that judgment of myself.
It's actually so beautiful.
It's so powerful. It's so powerful.
You're just
Because
kind of like dancing.
yes, you're like, okay, it's okay. And I can laugh about like, I did do that. I did say that.
I did
I did respond in that type of way. And you know what? I apologize for where I was. But now I'm not sitting here beating myself up and feeling guilty anymore. I mean, I did it. Yeah. And wow, I'm so sorry that I hurt you and you had to experience that with me in that moment. But what I tell Rashida earlier and what I tell
Look at
everybody
me now, though.
every day, every experience that you have experienced, whether you deem it negative, whether you deem it positive, whether you place judgment on whatever way you want to look at it, and your interpretation is exactly what you're supposed to be experiencing for who you are supposed to become. Even the most painful experiences. There's so much beauty in that pain and in what you can share with other people and how you can help, how we continue. We're all connected. And that's what this work has really helped me is that I have done a deep dive on myself and looking at myself and me trying to be a life coach and working with Black men and working with women and all type of people. The way that I have been able to help other people was doing this deep dive on me and being accountable and responsible for everything that I have experienced and what I've done. And continue to do this work every day. Yeah, so that's my take on some of those things. But how to change your life by changing the stories you tell yourself. That's it. You have to and what you change today, you may change again tomorrow.
Yeah,
and that's okay
okay.
because we're fluid, honey. We are continually getting better and better and making better choices, getting more downloads. And I feel like you're peeling the layers to get to your true human self, peeling the layers to get to that soul that's not built around ego and pain and trauma and human experience. Us poor humans. All these things mean so much. And that's when Rashida said you got to that empathy and that compassion for humanity. Because that's really what it's about.
Yeah. We've been going on this one. I knew this one was going to be
girl, this is passionate for me.
I could talk about it all day.
Yeah.
You know, we have to just remember, because people hate their past. When you can't look at your past, you have no future. The stories, this is what I wrote down, and I don't remember where I got it from, but I did get it from somewhere. So I'm giving you your credit wherever you are. The stories of your past shape the stories of your future. It was a TED Talk, actually. The stories of your past shape the stories of your future. Share your story.
Yeah.
And it's just that simple. Because sharing that story can move you along this maze of life to where you need to be. It really can. It because every time, and like I said way back in the beginning, every time you share your story, it's like a normal, natural step
Mhm.
of you moving forward in life.
Yeah.
And so, you begin to create that future.
Yeah.
You don't know what it's going to look like, but it's like that yellow brick road from the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like you don't really know how it's going to go, but every few steps, then you'll see it lightening up.
Yeah.
You'll see it lightening up.
Yeah.
Every time you be true to who you are and what you've experienced and what's going on in your life, and you sit and you look at it and you say, okay, yeah, okay, well, I want this, so let's do this, let's do that. It is just a way to grow and to develop, sharing your story. Your
Yes.
story is beautiful.
Yeah.
Whatever it looks like, it's beautiful. And
Yeah.
and just own it. Own
Yeah.
it.
Own it. Own it. I love it. That's true. Own it. Own it. Own it.
So
That's it.
person, it's like that Eminem in that movie where he starts the rap. He's in the battle and he starts the rap by saying everything the other guy thinks he's gonna say about his life. That's what you do. People think that they know you, and a lot of times people think they know you and they have no idea who you are. So you
Yeah.
tell them, you tell people who you are. You tell people what you've experienced and
Also,
what you've gone through.
you
And I'm
said
just
something.
I'm just drunk doing a lot of analogies or here,
No,
but
because it
it's
makes
just
sense.
coming into my head. So,
Yeah.
bounce around like that.
You should
But
share those. No,
alhamdulillah.
but when you said that, that made me also take responsibilities for your stories of other people. Because like they have stories of you have decided who other people are. And when you do that, you confine people. And you decide and you don't give them the space to be free and to choose differently. Even if they've been behaving the same way for 20 years, don't attach a story to who somebody is, because you allowing them to choose differently could be the one freedom that they need, the encouragement that they need. And this is just an energetic thought. Allow that person that space. I'm not telling you to make decisions based off of the future them. I'm not saying that.
Mhm.
But
You can't do that.
allow a person, like, hey, maybe their behavior is this right now, but I'm in my heart going to know that they can do better.
Yeah.
I'm in my heart going to know that if they decide to choose differently and step into their power, that they can make different decisions. And so when you allow somebody, and it's an energetic thing, because if you're like, oh, this is just how they are, you will never allow that person, at least not with you. You'll never allow that person that space. And so they'll never feel comfortable to share, even when they have thoughts, and they may be in so much pain that they can't share with anybody else. But you may be that one person who they're like, but this person always kind of allowed me to be human. And that could be your spouse, that could be your child, that could be your parents, that could be somebody who's 80, 90, 100 years old. Allow them the space that if they want to do what they can, and I'm going to give them that space that if they do choose that, I'm not going to hold over their head who they have been forever. That's a form of maybe you could look at it as forgiveness, but allow humans to develop. And every time you go into a new conversation, and it could be your husband, why you talk to every single day, or wife, but allow that person to have changed overnight if that's what they decided, because that's all it takes is one decision.
Yeah.
So watch your stories of other people and try your best to allow people to grow. Yeah. When you said that, I was like, yeah, because everybody got stories of you, but you got stories of other people too.
Yeah.
And
I think that to me, it's important for us not to be consumed so much with what another person is doing. It's something that actually takes us away from being consumed with our own selves. And so, yeah, that distraction you don't need, because you got to work, you got to work on yourself and your story and your narrative. So really, the truth is let people be. Let people be.
Yeah. No, I'm guilty of that. Like, because we're so busy. I'm trying to help this person. I'm trying to control how we think, but we don't know what their lesson is in life.
Yeah.
You know, just like you're trying to control, you think they have a bad habit, or you think that they always do this and they respond this way. And I see that they're holding so much pain and anger. Maybe they're supposed to be that way for 30 years of their life. And then they're supposed to wake up at 60 and figure it out. And
Yeah.
that's the story. So they can inspire other people. So
Yeah.
you sit there trying to force when you think it's time for them to shift and change, honey. You can encourage, you can always leave the space, but you got to focus on you, baby, because believe me, you got a lot more work to be doing on yourself while you're trying to force it on your child, your husband, your wife, your best friend, your sister.
And that's a battle. That's an internal battle that you have to take. I was just reflecting with my husband last night about, I think it was last night, the other night, about how at the beginning of, our marriage, you have all these expectations and all these wants and wishes, and you're, got a Ralph Tresvant song going on in your head for what you see. And when you don't see it, you immediately go into this critical state of, judgment and feeling wounded and trying to figure out what you can do about it. But at the end of the
story
day,
of what it means to you.
Yeah, trying to make this fairy tale fable that is really not even based on living in reality. So what you do is you have to take a look, at yourself and your story and who you are and what you want for yourself. And then you move in that direction. And when you do that, you become patient. And when you become patient, you receive rewards. And there's no reward better than the reward of having patience. And patience is a struggle. You say, I want things to look like this. I want my story to be like this. I want. But you can't have what you want without diligent patience. Because when you, even when you're unwrapping a gift, it takes patience to pull that wrapping off and to pull that gift out of that bag or surf through that paper. But when you get what you were intended to get, you're happy for that reward. So, part of elevating yourself to the story that you want to see for your life is having that patience.
Yeah.
And at the end of that patience, you will see that reward. God willing, you will see that reward.
I had a similar story with my spouse too. And I laughed because I had a recent conversation with him. And I said, babe, I had this idea.
That's my kid.
Okay. I said, that's my friend, y'all. So she's always waving and talking to me. So if she doesn't realize this is for everybody. So just let you know. That's my other little niece. But I had this idea that everybody, when I got in my relationship, before I start doing like this intentional work on myself, I was doing it, but not like I am now. But I had this idea that everybody relationships wanted the same thing. Like it's just in my mind, like who wouldn't want? So before I even asked him, I never asked him. I didn't ask him what he wanted out of relationships. I was like, yeah, when I get in a relationship, and mind you, y'all know this is my first relationship. So I had a lot of expectations and ideas of what relationship was. What I just mentioned, I always had casual interactions because I always said, well, I'm not gonna get a relationship till he's this way, that way. He got to be this way. He got to be a lot. Yeah. I placed a lot of demands of what I thought gonna be the worthy man to be in a relationship with me because I've been waiting 30 something years. And so if I'm going to commit, honey, you got to be, But I crazy.
Sometimes people got to get to that. But
I said like this perfect person. There's no perfect person. But in my mind, I was like, it wasn't he had to be perfect, but I was like, my man. That's why I thought in my mind, my man is going to want to. Who wouldn't want to grow with me? My man we're going to want to do this. We're going to want to do that. And I had made all these demands. And then I got in a relationship, but I never asked him or told him, hey, do you want to try to go on this journey that I'm going on myself? I thought he had to do it with me. So I thought that because I'm going on a self-developmental journey and I'm digging into my crap and I'm ready to change and evolve, you have to do this too. But that's really, you gotta have grace with people, because maybe it's not their time to do the deep work at the time. And
Yeah.
you need to make your decisions and understand that we're humans we're talking about. You going to do your intentional deep work, your best friend may not be ready to have these conversations about this. Your siblings may be like, I don't know, your parents, your husband, your kids, and that's okay. And that's the patience and the grace that you give humanity with. When you're pressuring people, y'all not woke, y'all ain't figured it out, that's coming from a lot of ego. And that's not even from that path of empathy and compassion that you need to have with others. And I couldn't imagine when I first started doing it, I was like, baby, why don't you do this? Why don't you go here? Why don't you do this? Why? And I was just trying to force him to do things, which maybe he didn't even want or was ready for anyway.
Yeah.
And until I decided, like, okay, Aisha, you have your journey. He has his journey. And to allow a human to have the pace of their journey.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not telling you which decisions you make based on that, but allow those humans in your life, your loved ones, to have the pace of their own life journey. And guess what? They may not ever achieve what you think they're supposed to achieve in this lifetime. And that's okay, because you should be focused on what you're trying to achieve anyway.
Yeah. I feel like that once you start working on, your narrative for yourself, you kind of find that those who can deal with it and be a part of your growth and your intentions for your life, they stay, and those who can't, they drop to whatever level they need to drop to. But you have to, move forward with an intention for your own self.
Yeah.
And stay in that intention and don't feel guilty about it, because you have to take care of yourself first,
Right.
before you can share that greatness with others.
Right.
So we're all on this journey of self-care, and we're just trying to do the best that we can.
Right.
And I say stick to it and grow from it. Get in touch with your truths. Your truths.
Yeah.
Your truths about your life experiences. If you have to go back to being 2 years old, just sit and reflect on it.
Mm-hmm.
And just think about it. Then when you think about it, like Aisha said earlier, think about those people who are around there with you. I sometimes, and it kind of makes me feel bad, but sometimes it doesn't kind of make me feel bad. I felt bad about it, because, I grew up with a single mom, working, trying to, keep us alive. But as a child, you don't see what your mom is doing. You don't know how your mom is stressing at night, and when they wake up, you don't know anything about what your parent is experiencing or going through or hiding or trying to make a way of. But all you experience is, what affected you in your childhood. So sometimes you just have to, look at those, because when you do look at those and examine those parts of your story, that sets you free as well, because now you're not holding on to the notion that, oh, woe is me on this and woe is me on that. But maybe, because, even with me, I had some experiences in my childhood that I did not like, but it wasn't a case of, everybody trying to do it to me. It was what it was because of the circumstances at the time.
Right.
And it wasn't a set in stone way for my whole life to be because of those experiences. Yeah. So we just have to be really cautious with the truths that we are telling ourselves.
Woo!
And
I'm like,
it's just very important.
Now, almost. I'm like, that's that. You said it. That you said it. That was it. Cautious of the truths that you are telling yourself. We could end on that note, because I don't even think we need to end on. Seriously.
Yeah. Get your story on your story, share your story, be your future.
Yes. I really felt this one, Rashida. Like this one, I feel a lot of our videos. Sorry, I made it be like, but this one, I think every human could receive something from this. And that's how I
Yeah.
feel, because everybody has something, a story that they're living in. And the more conscious you are, the quicker it gets for your own growth and healing. And like, I want to publish this video today. We're making videos. I mean,
We
this is
put
we're
it
I
out
don't know.
today. That's okay.
Like, but it feels
It's
very
so funny because I'm looking over here. I found my phone. One lady, one of my mentors, sent an email, and the first line is, "What do we know? What do we learn from Sabr?" And, you know, Sabr is Arabic for patience, and we was just talking about that. So,
yes,
you know, wise people know. I love when I see something that we as human beings connect on, and
mhm,
some of us are all on this journey together, and some of us are realizing that, you know, let's take the steps and let's move on and move forward,
right,
and not
right,
let the evil around us consume us and let us be in a stagnant state of mind.
right.
um but yeah, I
Oh, this
appreciate
was
this
good. I'm so
conversation
happy.
as well.
I'm so happy we did this morning. This was good.
Yeah, it
It's
was
so,
good.
uh,
First video back in a while, so
I
that's
know.
good. Yeah, catching up on
Yeah,
Coach's Corner.
but you know what? I think I needed that month or 6 weeks since we last recorded. I think it's been, I don't know, maybe a couple of months. We both had a lot of things going on in our life right now,
Yeah,
but I guess I needed that because I think it helped me get clearer on the whole my story thing, because I didn't even have to do a lot of research on this because I have been working on this every day. And I have
this
been,
actually, this video has helped me with my writing, because you know, I'm in the process of editing a book right now, and it's stressing me out. But
mhm,
this video has just, you know, helped put a kick in my pants, because I want my story to be a author, you know. And
yeah,
so as my steps, I just need to continue with my steps in doing that. So I really appreciate the conversation
good.
from Sacred Coaching and Coaching for Kings. That's what we
Yes,
do. That's what we
yes,
do, even for ourselves, y'all, even for ourselves.
yeah. Yes, no, seriously, seriously. And yeah, so on your journeys, know that when you heal yourself, you're healing others and you're allowing others to take place in that healing, because we're all connected.
Yeah,
And yeah, I we went a little over, but I think it was warranted on this video. It was a
yeah,
lot of information to get out. And it's kind of like a two-tone, creating your own story, identifying your story, and actually sharing your experience in your story and what that means to you. So I feel like I feel complete in this video. Do you feel complete?
I do. I feel complete. As Lady Lisa, I know, says all the time, she says, and I am complete.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
always appreciate when she says that, but now I kind of understand it a little bit more. So
Yeah. Yeah.
awesome.
I do.
Alhamdulillah.
So I hope everybody who watched this got a chance to get something out of it, you know. I hope you start looking at your stories and with a fun, have some fun with it. We have fun with it because
Oh yeah,
when you
you
laugh
gotta
at the
laugh.
ridiculous, we laugh at the ridiculousness of what you have created. It's
Scared
like,
to let me fall out laughing. It's
yes.
like,
When I was talking to my man the other day, I know we're about to go and we go on tangents, but when I go on tangents. But I was talking to my man the other day and I laughed. I said, baby, I never asked you if you wanted any of this. And I was mad at you for a long time because I felt like he don't want the things and he don't really love me and he don't want these things. And I was like, but I had never even stopped and said, babe, hey, do you want these same things? Or, the things that I'm trying to encourage you and force you and control you, unconsciously. I didn't realize I was doing it, but all these things. And I didn't even ask you about what you wanted in that
hmm.
moment. So I had to laugh at who I was and all these things, ideas I created in my mind about what it meant to me. So you have to laugh because, honey, us poor humans, as my coach Sean Smith says, us poor humans.
Oh goodness.
We're doing the best we can in the capacity that we're at, So I hope everybody have a wonderful day, that this video inspires you in a way to take control of your story, to identify your stories, find out what doesn't work for you, drop it, create new ones, and share your story. Share the stories that you have there can impact other people, but do it from a space when you're healed and you're really ready to share, because that
Yeah.
way you can allow yourself to do it in peace and freedom and non-judgment of you. And on that note, I am complete. Rashida, you can end with whatever else you want to end with.
Well, I am complete as well. So I will just end it with, that's what we do. If you need work with that healing, we
Yes.
are here. Coach Aisha with Coaching for Kings and Coach Rashida with Sacred Coaching. Grab your abundance, y'all, and live free.
Yes.
And
Yes.
thank you for tuning in.
Have
Thank
a
you
wonderful
for
day.
spending the extra time with us. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy this life. And I pray everyone is enjoying the next life.
Yes.
We will see you next time from Coach's
Okay.
Corner. God's peace and blessings, everyone.
Talk to you later. Peace.